Today is December 23rd, 2022, and we are going to give you a special holiday shop tour behind the scenes of how Pete Aardema and Kevin Braun's legacy of making one-off engines has resulted in great success on and off the track. And we're going to show you how they have successfully developed and manufactured over 100 internal combustion performance engines since the very beginning, which started back in 1988. You will also hear how some of Pete and Kevin's major setbacks when the 2007 wildfire destroyed the shop resulted in a complete loss. This video feature will also include an overview of the very first overhead cam engine and many other unique one-of-a-kind Aardema Braun one-off engines. So here we are, folks. We're with Pete Aardema and Kevin Braun, and Pete and Kevin are going to tell us a little bit about how this whole thing got started. So what do we got here, Pete?
Okay, well, it started back in '87. This hot rod magazine had 16 valve for the Super Duty 4-cylinder Chevy. And Dave Snyder was putting Chevy V8 heads on 4-cylinder blocks, this block.
Okay.
So I figured if he could put a Chevy V8 head on a 4-cylinder block, I could take the head that was made for the 4-cylinder and put on a V8 block and make a 354 valve. This is before the LT5 that Chevrolet made in the 90s. This is before the LT5.
So it was in a Fiero originally.
Right. It was made for the Fiero engine, which is a 4-cylinder.
Well, it's made for doing midget racing, I believe.
IMSA racing is what it was made for.
So,
But did Pontiac actually sell this vehicle, or was this a conversion that
No,
you
this is sold by Cosworth.
By Cosworth.
For the Fiero.
For the Fiero?
So if
Okay.
you want to race Fiero and IMSA against Ferraris and whatever else, you bought this head. And
Can
you,
I see that again? The picture of the head. So it looks. So that is definitely. It's a 4-valve.
The 4-valve, 4-cylinder, made for the Iron Duke, which is
I got it. Okay.
the 4-cylinder Chevy. And they were, at that time, in '87, it was $5,000 for the kit, which includes the cam, covers, lifters, springs, valves, everything. And we could only use the head. That's the only part we could use.
So why does this engine look like this?
Well,
I know it's a long story, right?
Anyway, I went up to Cosworth and bought a kit
To
mock it up to see if it would work. And then, knowing that I was going to have to spend $10,000 on parts that I couldn't use, I called Cosworth in England and asked them if they'd sell me 2 bare heads, unmachined, right out of the foundry.
Okay.
They said, okay, $600 for the 2 heads. And then a friend of mine, John Barrett, introduced me to Kevin because I needed to machine these heads and I didn't have that ability. And we had to take one of the heads and make it a left, because on a Chevy, they're symmetrical. You put this head on, you flip it 180 degrees. So we cut the front of one head off and welded it to the back of itself to make a left and right head.
Okay. So one was cut. Where?
One is a little bit longer because of their offset, right? The Chevy heads are offset. So we started machining back in '88 about.
So this
Kevin-
started in about 1988, 89?
Yeah.
I started working for
Kevin
March
used to
of
come by after work, and we worked till midnight in the garage
Wow.
on a Bridgeport, machining these 2 heads. Anyway, it took us probably 2 or 3 years to get it running, probably all 3 years. I ordered a Donovan block without lifters and without head bolts, because the head bolts are different on the 4-cylinder than the Chevy V8. And then we had to make this front cover because the chain has to be lubricated, and there's tensioners in it. In the front cover, you're right. Got 2 chains that run off the crank, one for each bank. The chains are staggered. Anyway, then we bought the house in Escondido, and we had the fire in '07. And this was up in the attic, and it caught on, the garage caught on fire.
Wow.
It was full of tires, wood, oil, gas. It was like a little potbelly stove.
So
cooking
you
there.
lost everything in the fire, all your
lost
equipment.
everything, yeah,
How many engines and cars and just a bunch of stuff?
The car, the motorcycle, this engine, a couple other engines. I had started the Porsche headed big block. I lost some of those heads.
And you started your first V12 too, right? Was that?
Yeah, we started the V12 using the Chevy 4-liter Suburban or Escalade. No, it's not Escalade. It's a SUV that Chevy made. It had a 4-liter, 4-valve, 6-cylinder in it.
Yeah, that was that Trailblazer, I think. Wasn't it?
Trailblazer, right.
Yeah.
I got 2 of those heads out of the wrecking yard, and we started to build a V12 8-liter, and now all that burned up.
Okay. So what do we got here? What was
This is
this?
a Corvette. This is about a 2000 Corvette. My son-in-law's boat, and a 60. This looking out back, the canyon.
And this was a 2003 fire? Or
Seven.
7.
This is the inside of the garage. That's a Bridgeport, or was. This is another Bridgeport, and the inside of the shop. That's a Corvette. That's a Fidel CNC
Fidel.
lathe.
That was a big one too.
This is the Corvette.
Yeah, everything burned up. Look at that.
That's the one. Those are the. Oh, Scotty was working them out.
So you had mentioned that there was the V12 burned up. So this is some of the V12 right here, right?
Yeah.
So that was the original one that you started.
We were just getting ready to order a crankshaft. We made the crankcase like we did on all of them. You know, this part. And we were going to cut the block off right above the crank. So we made the crankcase, then we were going to cut the cylinders off the original block,
Mm-hmm.
and then use the heads. And again, we had to make a left and right, so we had to cut one end of it off and weld it to the back.
Yeah.
But all that burned up, and then the new house and
So getting back to the original, so this is really what started it all. So this was a running engine, right? I think you showed me some pictures of it. You had it carbureted,
yeah, we put a single carburetor on just to start it up.
and this was
And I didn't have a car to put it in, so I just stuck it up in the attic.
and this all burned up. But this was really what started it all.
This engine started the whole thing. Kevin, his talent and my desire started this whole thing. I wanted to build a 4-valve.
Yeah.
Nobody had, well, Mosier was the only guy that built a 4-valve.
Which is right here, right? So this is
I
your,
didn't even know about that at the time.
So you didn't know about the Mosier at the time, but now this is your current Mosier.
Well, they were about $20,000 back then, which was a lot of money for a pair of heads.
Yeah.
And I think he did his in '72.
There's
And, and
71. Yeah, 71. Yeah. 71 or 72. Yeah, it's crazy.
very complicated. We'll get into that.
Yeah,
I
another
guess, later.
another day.
So anyway, after we got this running, I told Kevin, I said, Kevin, why don't we put a cam on a stock Chevy head? We just bolt a box on the head and put a cam in it. We knew
Yeah.
about the drive and the oiling and all that. We'd learned quite a bit by doing this one. So that one in the boat,
is
the very
your first
first-
variation of it?
it survived the fire. It was at a friend's house. It's actually the very first single overhead cam Chevy we did.
So-
we did about 50 in all.
Before we look at the boat, can you tell me a little bit about this distributor? That's
Well,
a
the
unique housing that you've made.
The manifold was in the way of the distributor, or the vice versa. So we made a distributor. It's got a little Gilmer belt in it, so it offset the distributor, kind of like a dragster has.
Yeah.
So it moved the distributor back a little bit.
So when this was running, how did it appear? Seem to run? Was it-
You cannot believe how crazy I was when it started running.
yeah.
I was jumping up and down.
Oh, you must have been
the
ecstatic.
first engine that oddball
Yeah.
that we got running.
And I think
You work on something for 3 years, and that kind of effort, and then it runs, it's really the icing on the cake.
yeah, that timing chain, that was really the first simple, right? That how you guys did that, how you did
Well,
a
it
double
wasn't
duplex.
simple.
I mean, it looks simplex in a way, but
we had to turn the pushrod distributor to be able to turn the distributor in the oil pump.
yeah.
So that's why the chain goes around the cam, the pushrod cam. And so one chain goes to the left head and one chain goes to the right head. The right head, it goes over the camshaft.
That's great. Easy.
It
Well,
ran.
that was
it
a
started.
great milestone. Then let's look at the one out in the boat. All right, so this is the
After we got the 4-valve running, I said, let's build a 2-valve. So we built these boxes, these cam boxes, bolted them on the head using the rocker studs, and then we made the cams. We had to make the 4 cams for the 4 valve, so we knew how to do that. We learned that. And thank goodness for gates and the belts. That was easy. We didn't have to make a box. And this engine is actually the very first one we built. Like
Wow.
I said, it survived the fire.
It ran in my El Camino, and then you took it on a power tour, didn't you?
Yeah, we've been to Florida. It went on a lot of trips.
Yeah.
It got a lot of miles on
So
it.
this was built early 90s as well then.
Right. And it, like I said, it survived the fire.
So this was the first small block overhead cam, and you guys did dozens and dozens of these,
We
right?
did about 50 counting Fords, and we tried a Dodge, a Chrysler,
We did a Studebaker. too, but
Oldsmobile. We
never
did
got
a
it running.
Studebaker, 289 Studebaker. We did about 50. We did 6 Fords, 6 or 7 Fords.
Yeah.
And then we went to Pleasanton with a kit,
This way, because of light. Yeah, the Pleasanton.
and I ran into Arlen Ness. His shop's up there. And I asked him, I said, I want to put a cam on a Harley. You think I could get a kit? And a week later, I get all these parts, a case and a heads. And the Harley is pretty complicated, very complicated to do. The pushrod tubes carry the every time the pistons go up, it creates vacuum and
Yeah.
pressure in the crankcase. And those pushrod tubes are kind of a place for the air to go.
Yeah.
And we eliminated those. So now we had all that crankcase pressure
That you had to relieve or
plus a
redirect.
negative all the time while it's running. And the engine actually grew about
Wow.
30 or 40 thousandths. So the belt got super tight after it warmed up. So we had
Oh.
to put a spring-loaded tensioner on it. We built 7 altogether. They're up at the museum, up at Arlen's Museum.
And you have photos in there I can reference here
San
later.
Francisco,
Yeah.
And then we went to Sturgis with this engine in the 37.
Uh-huh.
And Arlen's there, and he says, Pete, do you think you could put a V6 in a motorcycle? I said, no, let's use that Scat V4.
And that's the one that's inside.
So we built the first one for
Overhead cam,
him.
the first one for a Harley.
This is the first V4 we built for Arlen.
And these are the actual, this is what it looks like.
And then we use this block.
And tell me about this block. Is this
Okay, this is Scat block. It's half of a Chevrolet V8. He makes the crank and the cams. Scat did. The blocks we got from him were bad, so we put overhead cam on it. It was an overhead cam, 3-liter V4. We put a gear rotor oil pump on here off of a Buick on the front on the crank, like
Like
all the
the
new
Buick.
LS's and everything. And we made the intake manifold, made everything, the exhaust, everything. It's in Florida right now at a Harley dealer in Miami.
And how did this thing run? I mean, was it insane with power and torque?
It had a lot of power, but I'm not a bike rider, so I really didn't know.
I got trouble on it.
It was more than enough power. It's 3-liter, so even if it made 1 per inch, it's 180 horsepower.
And this was what you guys put together when you took it to Sturgis?
Yeah, this is a catalog. This of course, Arlen was the first. This was the second one we built for ourselves. He gave us all the pieces to build this one. This is one of the overhead cam V-twins,
Wow.
and then this was mock-up. This was going to be our third V4.
This is
This was going to be the best one ever. Unfortunately, it burned up too.
Okay, what was this, Kevin, you were saying?
this is the block. This is the one we did for Arlen.
Wow. Look at that. Pretty wicked looking. So then this is a traditional Harley setup,
Yeah,
but that's your
Harley.
overhead cam.
Overhead cam Harley, yeah.
Wow. You had another picture in here I saw. You look like a 5-valve cylinder head you had made?
Well, that was when I worked for somebody else.
What was that?
This was a engine we did for Cadillac or GM when I worked for Steve Stanley.
Wow.
That was not with me.
That's crazy. Now, is this your original?
No, that was actually GM machine. That was
Ah.
the block that was going on.
That's so cool.
We built
This is the original Harley we did,
Yeah.
and,
And-
we were going to do a two belts, but we ended up going to one. It was just trying different things.
How, I mean, when you built something like this for the first time, was there a lot of trial and error to make
Well,
it
yeah,
run, or do you, I mean,
you build things a couple times and realize that you could do it better, so you change it. So it's
Every one of those overhead cam Chevys got a little better.
Okay.
You know,
With
the
time.
first one was a little rough, the one in the boat.
Yeah.
But we that was a casting, and then we went in to billet,
Yeah.
and the last ones we built were pretty nice. The
well,
one
if
in
you,
the
if you look at the one in the boat, we originally made that with small the crank sprockets,
Uh-huh.
and we realized that it was trying to skip a teeth. There wasn't enough teeth in contact, so we ended up changing to the cam sprockets and driving it off the stock cam,
It's crazy.
so you get better wraparound.
So that was it. So this was first, the boat was second, then you started doing the motorcycles
Right.
with the scat block.
Then a guy came by with a Davies. Davies was a head that Gusenberg grew up.
Uh-huh.
4 Davies. They built a dozen or so. Anyway, a guy came by with a pair of heads, unmachined. This is a twin cam Hemi 2-valve
Yeah.
for a flathead Ford. And we machined him. We never saw the engine run. I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to him. He disappeared. We've done a lot of oddball stuff over the years.
So then that transpired into, then you started racing at Bonneville.
Well, then Scott, who was working for
Who's
me
the
doing
driver?
remodels on the buildings, he said, I want to go to Bonneville with my 34 coupe, and I don't have an engine. So I had a,
This is the Davies.
Oh, wow.
that's a Davies. The twin cam, 2-valve,
Yeah.
Hemi head for a flathead Ford.
Wow.
No, they were doing a gear drive thing. We changed it to a
That's
belt
cool
drive.
looking. That's really neat. I like how small the cam boxes are, the covers.
Yeah, well,
It's really slim.
because it had the Hoffy look to it.
Yeah.
And then Tony Pereira came by, the guy with all the Aurora stuff.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. But he, can you get one of those heads down, Kevin?
Yeah. Second.
Anyway, he had gotten a pair of heads made, who made those heads, Kevin?
Who made it? Mickey Thompson.
Yeah, Mickey Thompson made
Wow.
for Chevy. It's a twin cam, 2-valve Hemi
Mm-hmm.
for a Chevy V8. And
Wow,
he
that's
brought them to
crazy.
us to machine. And we were getting a little reputation as knowing what we were doing because we were making all these cams and weird stuff, heads. So this guy came from San Francisco and he gave us these heads and we machined them. He still doesn't have the engine running.
Yeah.
He's still waiting for parts. He's
That's been a while, huh?
really good friend. Yeah, that was back in the, I think they're over here, aren't they?
You should
Yeah, they're over here.
bring it down here and you guys finish it out.
Well,
Well, he's supposedly going to bring the block.
there's a lot of technical stuff because the way Mickey Thompson did it, there's a head bolt at 12 o'clock on a Chevy Braun.
Oh yeah, and it says it up there, Mickey Thompson, twin
Yeah.
cam, Hemi. Oh wow, that's beautiful. Do you want me to, here, do you want to hold the camera, Pete? I'll take it.
Prayer.
Uh-huh.
He had gotten these heads. Mickey Thompson built them. It's a 2-valve, twin cam, hemicircle head for a small block Chevy. What Mickey Thompson did, they put the head bolt right through here, and you put the nut on inside the intake port, which we thought that was really ridiculous.
Well, wouldn't that mess up the airflow and stuff?
Yeah. So what we did,
These were just the cams.
Oh wow. It does kind of look like an Offenhauser setup, doesn't it?
yeah. Well, it's Mickey Thompson's idea.
Yeah.
That's the way to build a 2-valve.
So these.
Anyway, so like big blocks, you put the head bolt, you put the nut on in the valley.
Uh-huh.
That's what this is. So this just will get a stud, and the block needs a little boss welded on it in the valley, and the bolt will come in from the bottom. That way we don't have the head sticking here. These cam boxes. They sit on there. Cam sits in there. It's a belt drive.
And we use Offenhauser buckets too.
And
Those are the ones with the radius?
Yeah.
this sits on there.
Oh, that's so cool.
So if he ever gets it done, it'll be a neat engine.
And then how many years in the development has this engine been going on?
Well, we started this in 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
This is you guys go a
Been a
little
couple
faster
weeks.
than that, don't you?
Well, it's been done for 5 years.
What is required to finish it?
He needs to take
You need
that
the
block,
block.
and weld some bosses in there for the top head bolt.
Ah.
Chevys have a head bolt at 12 o'clock, right where the valve is.
Yeah.
Right here. And you can't, it's hard to do. You know, on a pushrod engine, you got the ports that wrap around the pushrod. This doesn't have pushrod, but it's got a port right
It's on the intake.
So,
dead center.
no, let me ask you guys a question
Right
on
here.
this.
This is where the boss was.
So this is really a first revealing of this, right? People don't know about this setup, or is this a
No.
common setup?
no,
This
No,
is very unique.
I don't
This is
know.
this is a one-off. This is a one-off right here.
there supposedly is a couple more castings out there, but nobody's machined them that we know of. I mean, I don't know what they originally you made something, but we don't know what happened
So
to that either.
it's Mickey Thompson head, but a Davies.
No, this is
No.
different than Davies. Davies is very similar to this, but
right.
it's made for a flathead. This is made for the Chevy.
Just made for a small block, but who cast this head?
Mickey Thompson.
Mickey Thompson. Okay.
I don't know who cast the Davies head. That was prior. That was probably in the 50s.
And how did you get an actual Mickey Thompson head? Is it
Well,
just
that's
from
their Tony's.
they're all
Tony
they're
got
Tony's?
'em.
Okay.
Somewhere. He's a hot rodder that
Wheeler dealer, you can
yeah,
get this stuff.
Exactly. He's the guy we get all the Oldsmobile stuff from. The Aurora.
All right. So this is a unique artifact sitting on the
Yeah.
workbench.
If
right
he
now.
ever gets it running, it'll be neat.
Now, Kevin, are you able to show us I know you showed us once the radius bucket, the
Yes.
Offenhauser.
This was a series of years. It wasn't a.
This is the water pump
Tapered
hole.
gear.
This is a crank. This is the pushrod cam.
And this would have worked with this cylinder head.
Yeah. This.
So
goes-
this emboss here,
This goes
pretty much in there.
like that.
Wow,
Something like this. Yeah. Something like that.
crazy.
But that was a bunch of years. There's a.
So this is all gear driven in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are the offie buckets, and this is a, this is a regular bucket. That's a flat, and the offie was radiused on the top, so you could get faster acting cam, and then it was keyed because it can't rotate. Because
And those were gonna go in here,
yes,
and they would just sit right up on top,
yeah, see how there's a keyway in here?
so they don't rotate.
Yeah, they can't rotate.
Because they're radius. They got to be. Yeah, it's like a roller cam
Yeah.
in a car. It can't turn. It has to be stationary.
Can we set them right here so I can show the profile? Okay.
Of the lifter?
Up next to the standard one, flat top. Wow.
The radius gives it a valve of faster action, or the cam. It opens it quicker.
Wow, that's unique. So you only found these on Offenhausers.
They're on Hausers and the Ford V8.
The
Eagle.
camera? Or
A little camera of the 60s, I think.
Yeah, I think it was late
289.
60s.
wow.
I think it was actually based off of like 460 or
No,
260.
you don't incorporate this in any of your designs, do you?
Model A has those.
The Model A has that? Okay.
The 3-liter has it on also.
That's pretty crazy. And then, so it's very unique just to see some of these, and there's a lot of one-offs.
Yeah, so
That are
then
neat.
Scott was working for me. We were doing remodels on the buildings, on the commercial buildings. And he said, Pete, I need an engine for Bonneville. So I had a two overhead cam Chevy, like in the boat,
Yeah.
higher compression, much better engine, about 700 horse, 650. It was a good 350.
Yeah.
And so we put it in his 34 coupe, and we went to Bonneville. He went 178,
Wow.
which was not a record, but
Yeah.
it
That
was
got you
neat
hooked.
that first time ever out there we did decent. So then, kind of got me excited about Bonneville. It's kind of grassroots. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's your own innovation. You can do anything you want.
Yeah.
Anything.
Kind of open to interpretation, right?
Yeah.
You can do what you want.
And then I told you I ran into my neighbor. He said I'd never be able to put a cam on a Model A, overhead cam.
And you proved
And I
him
found
wrong.
those Subaru heads, and that's this engine.
Or
But this is later. The Subaru headed Model A is in Lincoln, Nebraska, at the museum.
all right.
This is a second version, third version. And you've got all that on that other video,
Yeah.
right?
What people can see. Yeah, where
Well,
we
you
disassembled.
You made 2 Subaru ones. We made one first. That was just
Yeah,
a
we made
cam.
one just to see if it would work, and for a friend of mine. And then this one. Well, not this one, but the one that's in the museum in Lincoln.
Yeah. And
That's the one we took to El Mirage and got a record very first time out.
wow.
So that really hooks you, right?
Yeah.
But they break every time you run them.
And that's where you've had to.
So we built our own head. and we cut the
Take
block
a look
down.
at all the epoxy on the side of the block.
Yeah.
That's because they break every time you run them.
So then Kevin made our own head, got rid of the super headed, and
This
that's
was-
when they made illegal, and then we made the
Yeah, this is the one we featured. It's four
the one
different,
we did the
four
story on.
individual heads.
on
Yeah.
one of your other videos.
Yeah.
This is this engine, but this is the third generation of the Model A.
Yeah. So you made many different Model A's, and that ended up resulting in the record at Bonneville 240, right?
Yeah, we
Or
got
238.
We've got
with
a bunch of
exit speed of 240 or something like that.
Yeah,
we got
Yeah.
a bunch of Model A records,
Yeah.
probably 10 or 12, I imagine.
at least.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. When you had those engines set up the other day, you had one of these had like 14 or 15 records on it.
So then
That was the turboed one.
these were breaking every time.
Yeah.
So I said, let's build our own four-cylinder, and that's when we built this engine. We're not ready geared for you right now, but
Yeah.
this is called the sheet metal engine.
Yeah, we got
Which
naturally
again, there's
aspirated
another-
records with this, and then so we decided to turn it to turbo afterwards.
And there's another video on this when you were trying to dial it in earlier this year.
This made 390 horsepower natural on gas, which is about 2 per inch. It's 180 cubic inch, right?
Yeah.
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 A little over 2 per inch. We got records with it.
We got records with it naturally aspirated on fuel and gas and
Long
turbo.
All 4 combinations, right?
Yeah.
Fuel, gas, turbo.
Jump for Pete. Come here, Pete. So that's it, huh?
This is the second one we built for ourselves. It's an overhead cam, scat block. We run the overhead cams off the pushrod cam. This is a pushrod cam. This is stock Harley side cover. Cover. So, like I said, it's overhead cam. It's 3 liter. This is the alternator ran off the cam. Right here, the little alternator,
Yeah.
and there's the sprocket. And this is the distributor. It ran off the belt also. There was this belt ran over here,
Wow.
and it's got a Buick oil pump on it because it doesn't have a distributor in it.
Yeah.
So it's got a plug. No, it has nothing in there in the distributor hole. But this is an Oldsmobile gear rotor pump.
And this.
This is a brake,
Okay. I didn't know what was
the cylinder.
Oh, that's the master cylinder.
Right.
Okay, that's an
It
interesting.
pumped oil here. It had had a radiator up here. Had these two, had electric water pump on it,
Wow.
and it's Harley transmission.
How did people receive this at Sturgis? I mean, was it?
Yeah, well, we never took this to, yeah, we did take this to Sturgis. We won a prize at Sturgis with this
Really?
trophy for something. It was a nice part. It was really a nice part.
Looks like it was. I'm sorry you lost it, Pete, in the fire. I know that
This was one
set
of
you
the-
guys back quite a bit.
and there'll never be another one. You know, it was way too much work. Scott
Yeah.
worked on this hours and hours.
Yeah. Oh. Now a piece of art.
Prison. That burned up in the fire. That was another one that burned up in the fire.
Well, there's a Chevy block up there with 2 Nissan heads on it, the
Yeah.
IRL heads.
Yeah, but no, this was the original.
Those heads over there.
These were the original Nissan heads.
Infinity.
Yeah. But this one burned up in the fire.
Okay, see this one? This is a.
That was overhead cam we did for a Riley head for a guy.
That's a 2-valve overhead cam. Model A.
How many engines from 1988 to now do you think you've constructed? I mean, you don't keep track. I
Close
mean,
to 100, I think.
Yeah, at least 100.
at least 100. Yeah. Wow.
And no 2 are alike.
Yeah.
There's no, and not one is a pushrod Chevrolet. They're all contraptions, as my buddy calls them.
Wow.
They're, 99% of them are overhead cam. Yeah,
Tell me about
never
it.
built
Well, this was, I used to work for Steve Stanley, and he did this for General Motors. It was a 5-valve cylinder head. It started with a block of metal, and made a 5 valve per cylinder 4-cylinder. And this was,
Did that ever go into production?
no, they ran it, they put it in this car. They ran it,
Wasn't that like the Quad 4
no,
type car?
this was a,
It's
what
a
do they call it?
Berlinetta.
They called it as a Le Mans.
A Le Mans, but it was like-
4-cylinder crossways motor, so it wasn't really like the real Le Mans cars. And then this was the one we did for Cadillac, which is buried somewhere at GM. Probably
look at
got
that.
melted down for scrap.
There's the Davy. Nice.
No, that's the
Oh no, it's not.
that's the Hemi.
The Hemi.
Those Aries heads. This is a 4-cam Harley we did for OMS.
And this was, you said, some of your earlier,
Yeah,
what
the
you were
rocker-
discovering.
rocker version.
That won't.
Here's the gearbox out of that.
Let me, I gotta grab this real quick. I'll come back.
So what do you got going on?
Well, this is a part I 3D printed that we're gonna try to do a casting for, to cast individual cylinders, and then basically see if we can weld them together to make a V8 head. And then we're, like I say, this is just to kind of proof the, see if we can take this to a casting or a pattern maker and see if we can use this to make the pattern for casting up single cylinders. And then we'll basically take this, have 4 of them put together, and then we'll weld together the water jacket,
Oh, that's cool.
on the ends and around the side, weld on flanges and everything.
Can I see the combustion site?
Well, it's not really done.
That's where you're kind of roughing
This
it
is, well, we're probably gonna have to fill this with like some Bondo or something and shape it so it has a little more of a squish area right through here and here. We want to be more like the combustion chamber here is.
in. Okay.
So, we're gonna have to do some filling. I mean, I can play with it. I'm gonna try
Shape
playing
it
with
up,
it more
yeah.
with the surfacing and stuff of the cab system. But this idea is just try to fill some of that in.
Pretty cool.
Just trying to. I just got done 3D printing this yesterday. So
How long does something like that take to print?
this took 90.5 hours.
90.5 hours.
I mean, I could do it faster by going to a bigger nozzle.
Now, 90 hours to print
I
it.
just
How many
can't.
hours to design it?
Oh, there's probably not as much as it did to print it. I think I had 3 days in designing it, so about whatever, 24 hours.
Pretty cool. So this is where it all starts. This
Yeah.
is
Well, the only thing is now, after talking to Jeff, we want to change some things on it. So we're going to probably lower the exhaust a little bit. The exhaust isn't as critical as an airflow as the intake, so this will probably be pretty good. But we can stand to lose a little flow on it, because what happens with this type of combustion chamber is because the valves are in line so close that on overlap you'll actually over scavenge and start pulling some of the intake charge out the exhaust. So we're actually going to want to probably, to hurt the exhaust wouldn't hurt us.
Yeah.
Won't hurt horsepower. It actually might help things, because what we've been doing is, because of that, we've had to take cam duration out to try to keep it from over scavenging. So
That's it for now, folks. We hope you enjoyed this video feature. We wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And please stay tuned to see what's in the works for 2023.